So as we've done the last couple of annual meetings, because right now it's just us for the most part, right? Meaning it's Fahe members, and I do like to give you a report on how I think things are going for us as a network and as your membership association. And so I'm not going to tell you like everything that's happening. I'm wanting to hit some high points, and then I want to have time for us to do a bit of a town hall meeting. So if you have questions about what we should be thinking about, what we should be looking at, and you're not hearing that addressed in what I have, I hope you'll share, save those questions, and we'll dialogue on it later. But this really is meant to be, I think, your time. I do, 2021, it was for us ends at the end of June, so it's officially complete. I was able to pull together, I think, some of the data, but there's no denying, and you heard it from each of the caucus chairs, that the last 18 months in particular have been pretty surreal. And so all of fiscal year 21, I think, was kind of caught in this, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for the dream, this dream to end, right? Like, and somehow like it's all been surreal in some way. Maybe you feel like I do. There are just days that I am tired from the uncertainty and the remoteness of this sort of season of our lives. But the awesome work that you all do, and the way that I've seen story after story of members stepping up in new ways, serving your community, doing, I think, what Karen referred to as, the work of heroes, to paraphrase it just a bit, is truly inspiring. And I hope that you take time during the next couple of days to reflect on just how awesome your work is, how powerful that is in the communities that you work in, and that we did better than just survive the last year and a half. There's been real life change, I think, for the people we serve and in the communities we live in. I would say all in all, last year was really solid. So many good stories, and yet forward progress, I think, on things that mattered. Last year at the annual meeting, I laid out a vision, and I talked about a foundation. I don't know if this is going to ring familiar to you all or not. When on the few occasions I get in front of the members, I've brought this up over the last year, the 4 corners. If you were really paying attention last year, you might remember that Dave Crayer added to sort of the analogy by saying, the rebar, the part that holds it together and makes it strong, is you all. But when I think about where we're headed, regardless of the circumstances, we laid out this vision so that Appalachia would become a place of growth and opportunity and hope, so that everybody would fulfill the opportunity to have a high quality of life. That the vision would take a generation of work, like 40 years, and that our job in the next decade, this 10-year period that we're in, is to build a foundation that's capable of meeting that mission. And so the 4 corners were: 1, to increase investment; 2, to expand capacity; 3, to build a new narrative; and 4, to add to our strength in numbers. And so just a quick update as to what those goals were and where I think our progress is. First, on increasing investment, it was in response to the low per capita investment that comes to our region, right? Roughly 10% of what we see in other parts of the country on average, that we would work together to bring $1 billion new dollars of philanthropic, $2 billion in new federal money, and $3 billion of new private capital over the next 10 years. Last year, we raised $76 million in new private funds. And your advocacy team, who's also been very hard at work, advocated for $2 billion by my estimate of monies in the reconciliation bill that would end up in our region. So I feel like we're off to a good start there, right? So, second was expanding capacity, that we would increase coming from Berea an annual investment to the region of $370 million a year, and we would direct that to you all. Members, I see you all as the local leaders in your communities. That would in turn, that $370 million would double the capacity that you have over the next decade. As a result of your capacity, that we would, as a network, be capable of $600 million a year in impact, and that would serve a quarter of a million people every year, so 250,000 people. This past year, our collective impact was over $330 million and served 90,000 people. So great job. It's just a fantastic job. And again, I feel like we're off to a really strong start. Third corner of our goals were to build a new narrative, to build the American dream, and that by 2030, we would build our voice up so that it was heard regularly on a national basis and in our region, that people would be able to tell the Appalachian part of the American story. And that would help build the American dream, not only for us and our neighbors, but in other parts of the country as well. We've been building our machine, if you will, for that communication work. We brought on new communication director, Ted Boyett. Just a quick reminder that if you don't forget to put yourself on mute. And I'll be on mute when I'm not speaking myself. So we brought on Ted Boyett. He's been with us for about 4 months. And already starting to see, I think, some really good progress there. We've had placement in some national magazines and publication on a bill that that's being considered as part of the big infrastructure package. We ran a piece with the Bipartisan Policy Committee in their blog recently on the income eligibility piece that the Big Picture Policy Committee worked on why a national income eligibility floor is needed, and we're still hiring. So as we build out, we think we can build a lot more. Those are just a couple of examples of where we're trying to head with this, so that your voice, what we want, and I connect it to the Big Picture Policy Committee because in part, that's voices of the members framing those policy ideas that we want to make sure your ideas, your voice is what's being elevated and heard. And I apologize, I'm fighting a cold, which is why I'm by myself and not in Berea. It's not a pandemic, but nobody else wants this. But I lose my voice just a little. So that is corner number 3. And then the last corner, which I've referred to as strength in numbers, because it's such a strong part of our tagline that's been part of who we are for so long. And I even heard that from our prospective members, but longtime friends like Maria Catron and Retha Patton, both speaking to sort of wanting to be part of this group. And I think for the strength in numbers. You've heard me say it, ad nauseum probably, but if you want to go fast, you go long. But if you want to go far, if you're trying to get something really important done, something big done, then you have to do it with friends. And that's what that means. That strength in numbers means to me, or building the big tent. If you hear that phrase ever, I think it's about inviting more people to the conversation. That doesn't necessarily mean growing the membership. It's about whether or not we can further the conversation at a local level, maybe with your own organization, and building your base of influence, as well as our base of influence. I think regionally. We wanted to grow our strength in numbers power by 100-fold. I'll admit I don't have a great way to measure it. I think it's like the wind. We'll have a better idea of what the effects are than we will by just trying to measure it, if you will. We've hired a new leadership development director, Andre Hash, who is set to work with you all and help us build that bigger tent together. I think in terms of what we think that base of influence looks like, the year in January started off really strong when we saw language that was language we helped develop that came in one of the executive orders from the Biden administration on working in underserved communities, which would include large parts of Appalachia. Through the Big Picture Policy Committee, we made progress on our income eligibility, and we advocated for member priorities in the American Recovery or the American Rescue Plan Act and the infrastructure bill. The broadband position that the committee also worked on went to Congress, and the language that you all drafted went into the final version of the bill. So when we think about our strength in numbers and having that big voice, I think those are just examples of things that we were able to make progress on this year. And so I think there are many other measures and there's lots of other things to talk about, but like when I want to report back to you all what your organization is doing and how we connect that to you all, those are my big 4 points. I would tell you that while the team and I are working on those 4 corners, other things that are on my mind. And so this is not a report out on what we've accomplished, but more about like, where's my headspace? Well, I think that there are people I live with who would like to know what I'm thinking about sometimes. So I'm just going to tell you guys, you don't even have to guess. It starts for me with relationships. I think it's a real challenge in a virtual world. I don't know why it's so hard, but it does feel different to me. There's something different about connecting on Zoom that might be more efficient, but doesn't feel as authentic. But it matters how we connect to you all. I think the kind, if we had a business strategy that was sort of more, less about business terms, I would say we are a relationship company. That is our fuel. It's how we relate to one another. And I think it's going to be super valuable in our future as well. We are working with the housing finance agencies and other partners on strategies about how we keep the hard-won capacity for you all, the members and other leaders in communities. And so we are getting some back and forth, I think, with the HFAs in a few of our states, not every state. You know, it doesn't all go the same, but that doesn't mean we will not. We won't just give in on that, but capacity is hard won, and there's so much money. How it gets invested, whether or not it builds the capacity to deliver for the future, I think is of critical importance. That's on my mind. I heard several of you mention in the caucus reports the serious issues around building supplies and supply chain, just generally, like the predictability as well as the cost both. We are working with a couple of partners. I've been involved with a task force on addressing that supply chain, and nobody's got great answers, but I want you to know it's on my list. We're thinking about it. We're trying to participate in national conversation about what that looks like. I have realigned the organization a bit. The membership team, namely Vonda, is reporting to me, and we've got our friend who serves as a Fahe fellow, John Niederman, who's been in contact, I think, with just about every member in the last several months. We're going to start implementing some new ways to connect with you and to support your work. The other things I have on my mind, as I've worked with the board, we formed an ad hoc committee to look at how to structure goals and create action to address some of the structural exclusion that we see, particularly in our region. And I would love to report that we've made a whole lot more progress than we have, but it does matter that that we think about not just what we have to say on the issue of racial justice, but also to broaden that and think about how we are impactful around strategies that create real change in systems that promote that kind of exclusion based not just on race, but also on wealth and poverty and class. From an operational standpoint, I have to think about just how we're doing in terms of not only our productivity, but what our basic like sustainability from a financial standpoint looks like. I would just tell you it's good. We did have a record year in our lending and investing. I was particularly, I think this might be valuable to all of us. We manage portfolios of mortgages for low and very low income people. That delinquency rate ended the year below 3%. It is just a remarkable testament to how important an affordable product is, and that people, regardless of their income, will succeed as owners if we make it, if we set it up right. And they are owning it. And then lastly, we've grown. Some of you have had growth as well. And that leaves two items that are on my list pretty heavily, and they will come up, I think, as themes within the conference. One is we outgrew our ability to manage some of the things the way that we'd always done it. And so part of our team is looking at creating a set of goals that improve our operational excellence. What are the gaps that we have? What are the shortfalls we have in our operations, and how do we address those as a team? And then the second part of that is that as we grow, not just in Berea, but just as a network, just generally, how has our world changed? How have we changed, particularly in light of the pandemic, and I think a lot of the economic consequences there that follow it? How are we behaving now, and how does that change our alignment to the vision, the mission, and our basic sort of strategies? And where do we need to make changes? And to be honest, we are on the front end of addressing that. But I think with this much chaos in our world, being really clear about who we are, where we are going, and making sure that we are clear on the intentionality of that, and that we're aligned as a staff, as a board, as a membership to those things, I think are critically important. Otherwise, I think our hard work can get a little fractured. That's my report to you all. I think your staff, we know we're working hard, but we're not working harder than you guys. We're all working hard. I hope we're doing it together. There's a lot happening out there. So with that, thanks. We'll move to the town hall meeting.